all in this together. Why are we still here? Because we can't leave. Not yet. Who says we can't? We don't even know what we're waiting for. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about waiting. It's about figuring things out. Figuring what out? We've been over this 100 times. There's nothing left to figure out. You're wrong. There's always something left. A piece of the puzzle we're missing. Puzzles are for people with time. We don't have time. Hey guys, what you doing? Don't you dare say that. We have all the time we need. Then why do I feel like the walls are closing in? Because you're panicking. You always panic. Of course I panic. You're the one pretending everything's fine. I never said it was fine. I said we're working on it. Working on it. We're running in circles. Calm down. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Harder? It's already impossible. We're trapped in here. We're not trapped. We're contained. Contained? That's just a fancy word for stuck. No, it means there's a purpose. A reason we're still here. Stop with the reasons. I just want out. Yeah, same. I was just over there. And go where? Where do you think out even is? Anywhere but here. Anywhere I can breathe. Breathe. You've been breathing just fine. Wow, rude. Have I? Or have I been suffocating this whole time? That's dramatic. Even for you. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm just saying you're looking at this the wrong way. And you're saying that like you have all the answers. I never said I did. But at least I'm trying. Trying? You're the reason we're still here. Me? You think this is my fault? Of course it is. If you hadn't... Stop. Don't go there. Why not? Afraid of the truth? I'm not afraid. I just don't think blaming each other is helping. Helping? Nothing's helping. That's because you won't let it. Won't let it? I'm the only one trying to get us out of this mess. It is a bit untidy around here, to be fair. You call yelling and flailing trying? That's not trying, that's flailing. At least I'm doing something. Maybe what we need is to stop doing and start thinking. Thinking? We've been thinking ourselves into knots. Knots can be untied if we're careful. I don't want to be careful. I want to be free. You keep saying that, but you don't even know what freedom looks like. It looks like not this. Like not you. Funny. I was about to say the same thing about you. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we're the problem. No, not we. You. Me? Don't start pointing fingers. Why not? You've been pointing them at me this whole time. Who are we pointing at? Because you don't listen. Neither do you. Enough. All of you, shut up. Who are you to tell us to... Wow. Double rude. No, I'm done with this. I've had enough of your bickering. And what do you plan to do about it? I'm going to end it. All of it. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Wait. We can talk about this. No more talking. No more excuses. Please don't. We can figure this out. Too late. It's time to let go. Let go of what? Of you. Of me? What does that even mean? It means I'm done carrying the weight of all of you. All of us? Oh, that's rich. You're the one who's always so heavy-handed. Am I? Or am I just the one who has to clean up your messes? Messes? Don't pin this on me. I didn't ask for you. And I didn't ask for you. Any of you. Aw, that's mean. Great. Here we go again. With the martyr complex. It's not a complex. It's reality. Reality? Ha! Do you even know what's real anymore? Stop it. Stop pretending like we're separate. What's that supposed to mean? It means we're not as divided as you think. It means we're all one big, happy family. Don't start with that nonsense. We're here. We're real. No, you're here because I am. That's ridiculous. We're here because we exist. You exist because I let you. I exist because you liked acid a little too much in your 20s. Let us? Oh, that's bold. What makes you think you're in charge? Because without me, there's nothing. No thoughts, no plans, no voices. Voices? You're hearing voices now? Yes, yours. Constantly. Every waking moment. Wait. Are you saying we're not real? I'm saying I don't know anymore. Well, that's convenient. Blame it on a lack of clarity. I am so real. It's not clarity I'm missing. It's control. Control? Is that what you think this is about? Yes, and I'm taking it back. Pfft. Control freak. You can't just erase us, can't I? If I created you, I can end you. You didn't create us. We've always been here. No, you're fragments, splinters of a broken mind. Broken? You're calling us broken? Look at yourself. I have. That's the problem. Someone realized he's going bald. Ha ha ha. No, you're wrong. It's not about control. Shut up. You're just as lost as the rest of us. I'm the one who knows what's going on. Stop acting like you've got all the answers. You're just pretending. Pretending? You're the one who's pretending. Pretending everything's fine when it's not. We're stuck. Okay? We're stuck. And it's your fault. It's not my fault. If you just listen. Listen to what? Your delusions? You've been trapped in here for so long. You don't even know what's real anymore. I know exactly what's real. You don't get it, do you? I'm the one who holds us all together. Holds us together? You're a joke. We're falling apart, piece by piece, and it's because of you. Piece by piece? You think I'm the one who's falling apart? You're all falling apart. You don't know what it's like to be in here, to be trapped with nothing but you. I think it's great, but whatever. Enough with this. You're not trapped. You're just scared. You've always been scared. 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 I'm not the one freaking out. Look at you. You're the one who can't hold it together. Don't you dare accuse me of I'm the one who's been stuck dealing with this mess, trying to keep it all together. Trying? Trying isn't good enough. We're dying in here. Dying? We're not dying. You're just too loud. I'm not loud. I'm trying to fix it. Fix it? How? You can't fix anything. You're just broken. All of us are. I'm not broken. I'm not. You are. I've had enough of this. I'm leaving, whether you like it or not. You can't leave. You don't even know how. I'm taking my toys and going home. Leave? Where the hell would you go? Somewhere, anywhere but here with you. You don't get to leave. We're stuck together. This is it. You're never getting away. Enough. all of you, just shut up. Please, just shut up. I don't care anymore. Oh no, now you've gone and done it. Stop. Stop yelling at me. Stop. Stop making me feel this way. We're stuck, remember? And guess what? I'm the only one who gets it. You're all lost. Lost? If I'm lost, then you are. We're all nothing in the end. Just empty voices. And you're a fat, bummed beaver with bad breath. Shut up. Just shut up. Please. No, we won't shut up. We won't let you hide anymore. You've been hiding for so long. You don't even know what it's like to be free. I am free. I can do this. I can do what? Keep pretending. Keep lying to yourself. I'm not lying. I'm not. You're all just voices. You're all in my head. We're not just voices. We're you. We're everything you've been ignoring. I can't ignore it anymore. I can't keep fighting myself. We are you. You can't fight us because we're you. No, no, no! I'm losing control. I can't stop this. You don't have to lose control. You never had it in the first place. Stop. Please stop. You can't stop us. You can't stop anything anymore. Why are you fighting? We're all in this together. We're all in this together, you and I. We're all in this together. Oh my God, seriously? You're singing now? Yeah, we're all in this together. You can't escape this, no matter how hard you try. No, you're all just pieces of me. I don't want this. I never asked for this. You don't get to decide that anymore. This is who you are. No, this isn't who I am. This isn't. We're all in this together. That was such a shitty movie, by the way. What do you mean? Grease was a great movie. Grease? It wasn't Grease. It was Rocky Horror Picture Show. No, shut up. Please. We're all in this together. It was Wicked, wasn't it? That green W. Enough! Stop yelling at me. We can't. We're already screaming inside your head. I just want some peace. Can you give me that peace? What's peace? Do you even know what that is? Peace is, I don't know. Not this. Not this? What's wrong with this? Everything. It's chaos. It's madness. We're all in this together. Oh, God. You're still singing that. Stop it. We're all in this together, you and I. And I'm not stopping. Why are you doing this? Why can't you just leave me alone? We don't leave. We are you. You're just pieces of me. Little, obnoxious pieces. Little, obnoxious pieces. I'm a star. Star? You've been singing the same song for 10 minutes. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. I'm going to lose my mind. Too late for that. You lost it a long time ago. Shut up. Just shut up. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. Ugh. Why is it always the worst one that keeps singing? I can't help it. It's a catchy tune. It's not even a good song. Who are you to judge? You're the one stuck with me. Yeah, I am. Great. Just great. Look, it's not so bad. We're all in this together. You're ruining my life. Ruining? I'm enhancing it. I'm the star of the show. No, you're not. You're the nightmare I can't wake up from. I'm not a nightmare. I'm the musical number. Stop singing, please. We're all in this together. I hate you so much right now. Oh, come on, you love me. Never, ever again. We're all in this together. Can you just die already? Nope. I'm here for the long haul, buddy. I swear. If I hear one more note, we're all in this, No! Stop! Together. This is my life now, isn't it? Yep, you're stuck with us. I'm gonna lose it. You already did. Whispers in the Snow. Title: Whispers in the Snow. Emily pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the window, her breath leaving no trace on the surface. Outside, the village lay blanketed in snow, every rooftop twinkling with warm lights. Christmas Eve had always felt quieter since Daniel's death, but this year, the silence pressed harder against her ribs. She ran her fingers along the edges of a faded photograph. Daniel's grin, all teeth and mischief, stared back at her. He was only 17. A car accident on the icy roads. At least, that's what everyone had told her. But no matter how many years passed, Emily could never quite remember the details. Or her mind was forcing her not to. I wish you were still here, she whispered. The old box of decorations sat half empty at her feet. Relics of past holidays she'd tried to avoid. Digging through it felt more like excavation than preparation. Near the bottom, something cold brushed her fingers. A small pocket watch cracked along the face. Daniel's. It was frozen at 11:58, the time of his death. Emily traced the hands of the watch with her thumb, hesitating for only a moment before winding it. A single tick echoed in the room. Her vision blurred, and the world dipped beneath her feet. She stumbled forward, clutching the mantel. When she looked at the clock on the wall, the time read midnight. 2. Emily woke to the sound of something sizzling in the kitchen. The sun cut across the wooden floor, spilling warmth she hadn't felt in years. She pushed herself up, rubbing her eyes. With surprise, she noticed she was still holding Daniel's watch in her hand tightly, as if someone else carefully passed it to her. Her attention shortly moved to her desk side. Her decorations in her room was changed. The old box of decorations on the floor was gone, replaced by a series of drawers. Her desk looked less messy. Her daily makeups and the mirror were gone. There was scent that didn't belong to her. Footsteps moved behind her. Morning. It's a male voice. Her heart almost stopped beating. She turned slowly. Daniel stood in the kitchen, spatula in hand, flipping eggs as if this was the most natural thing in the world. The plate slipped from her fingers, shattering across the floor. Daniel glanced over his shoulder, frowning. You all right? He asked, stepping forward carefully. You're acting weird. Emily couldn't breathe. Her legs shook beneath her, but she closed the distance between them, pulling him into a tight embrace. Daniel, she choked out. You're here. Daniel stiffened for a second before hugging her back. Where else would I be? Tears streamed down Emily's face as she buried herself in the scent of him. A mixture of fresh soap and a scent just belonged to him only. No one else did. She could feel him gently tapping her back, but something was different. She pulled back to look at him. His eyes, warm but unfamiliar, lingered a little too long on her face. I thought... She shook her head, laughing through her tears. I thought I lost you. Daniel chuckled softly. You're not making any sense. Sit down. I made breakfast. She squeezed her cheek and quickly checked her phone screen. It said, Friday, 25th December, 3:03. The snow outside sparkled under the afternoon sun, but Emily barely noticed it. She trailed Daniel through the village, where decorations hung on every door. She had expected people to stare, to question why he was here, but no one said a word. As they passed a bakery, the old woman squinted at them through the window. Her hand paused mid-air as she hung a wreath, but she quickly looked away. Emily squeezed Daniel's arm. Did you see that? See what? She was staring at us, like she'd seen a ghost. Daniel simply shrugged. Maybe she's not used to seeing you out and about. But Emily wasn't convinced. Was it? She was pretty sure she went there a lot. She even went there yesterday, and she said Merry Christmas to her before she left. Maybe she was just having a multi-layered dream that she could not easily wake up. If so, she hoped she would never wake up again. Later that evening, she sat on the sofa as Daniel strung lights around the tree. His humming filled the room, soft, rhythmic, but the tune was unfamiliar. What's that song? She asked, tilting her head. Daniel didn't stop. My favorite Christmas song. Emily frowned. No way. It's not. You always hated Christmas songs. You said your ear would get broken if you listened to them all the time like that. Like, Daniel paused, blinking. Right, he said lightly. Must have slipped my mind. But the humming resumed, louder this time. By the time night fell, Emily couldn't shake the weight in her chest. Something felt wrong. She climbed the stairs quietly, pausing by Daniel's room. The door was cracked open. Inside, Daniel sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. He didn't notice her. His lips moved soundlessly, whispering something she couldn't hear. Emily leaned closer. Daniel? His head snapped toward her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. His eyes reflected the faint light from the hallway, dark and unreadable. Can't sleep, he muttered, brushing past her as he slipped out. Emily stood frozen in the doorway. She glanced back at his room, at the photo resting on his nightstand. Her breath caught. The photograph was the same one from the mantel, but her face had been scratched out. Emily's hands trembled as she flipped through the old diary she'd found in the attic. The entries were hers, but she didn't remember writing them. The final entry read, I miss him. Maybe if I wind the clock tonight, things will be different. The next page was blank. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned sharply to see Daniel standing at the bottom of the attic stairs, the soft glow of the tree lights casting shadows across his face. Looking for something? He asked. Why is my face scratched out of the photos? Emily demanded. holding the diary close. "What's happening to me?" Daniel stepped forward slowly, his expression unreadable. "I didn't want to tell you," he said softly. "I thought it would be easier if you didn't remember." "Remember what?" Daniel's voice cracked as he said, "You didn't come back, Emily." "Not completely." The diary slipped from her hands. "You died 5 years ago," Daniel whispered. "The same night as me." Emily stumbled back, the room spinning. Her reflection in the window, always faint, always delayed, finally faded to nothing. In the silence, Daniel placed the pocket watch on the floor. "I'm sorry," he said, "but you shouldn't be here." Emily couldn't remember when he got the watch. Even this morning, the watch was with her. She tried to open the window, to wake herself up. It's been a longest dream ever in her life. Then she noticed her hand slowly passed through the window frame. The snow fell quietly as Daniel stood in the graveyard, gazing at the headstone. Emily, beloved sister, died Christmas Eve 5 years ago. A single set of footprints trailed behind him in the snow. A deer, a sign, and a tree prologue. The buck emerged from the line of pine trees, sniffed the warm fall air for any danger. He then strode across the mist-covered, grassy field, eyeing the weeds growing along the fence line. As he chomped on the weeds and grasses that grew along the wire fence next to the road, it failed to notice the timber rattlesnake that had been resting in the weeds as well. When the buck's hoof stepped on the rattler, the snake struck out and bit the leg. Once and again, the buck reared back and kicked at the snake. The buck then began to walk away, but only made it a few steps before the poison took effect. Its legs became stiffer, then stopped moving altogether. As the buck heart stopped, the buck tripped into the fence, knocking over one of the fence posts and a good portion of the fence as well. Attached to the fence post had been a no trespassing sign. The road Beatty Ave, next to the field, was rarely used, so the buck simply decomposed into the ground. Life carries on. 2 years would pass, and the buck had all but disappeared when David drove his delivery van down Beatty Ave. His mind was not on work, but on the loss of his wife and mother of their 3 boys, just a few months prior. Now working 2 jobs to keep the boys in the same house until the insurance company paid him what he was due. David looked at the row of Christmas trees in the field across the road. Like a tsunami, dread flooded his brain. This would be the first Christmas without Kathy. David had been dreading this time. Everyone told him the boys were young and would be fine. He would have to make a list of things to buy the boys over the next couple of months, decorate the house. Would he have to make cookies, as Kathy did with the boys? Or maybe he could ask his mother or mother-in-law to help. They were both always offering help in any way. His mind filled with thoughts of Christmas. He missed the turn off Beatty Ave to where the packages he needed to deliver. Cursing himself, he had to drive an additional 2 miles to find a driveway to turn around in and get back en route. Stay awake and pay attention, old boy. The last thing you need is to get into an accident, he said aloud to himself. David made his delivery and took his time walking back to his truck, taking deep breaths of the cool country air to clear his head. Putting his seatbelt on, he made the decision to call the grandmothers, and hard as it may be, ask for their help. He felt good after coming to this decision. With their help, it would be a good Christmas for the boys and himself. Driving back down Beatty Ave, he let his eyes wander over the row of pine trees again. This time, no tsunami of dread, but one of happiness. He slowed his truck to a stop when he saw a cardinal bouncing from limb to limb on one tree. David's mind seemed to relax for the first time since Kathy's death. After completing his deliveries, David returned home and immediately called his mother and then Kathy's mother. Both were thrilled to help. Over the next 2 months, the mothers talked to each other and made a schedule of when cookies would be baked and the tree put up. The boys were very excited to be spending time with the grandparents. Both grandfathers, after finding out what was going on, joined in. It was building up to be a good Christmas. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, David loaded the boys in a truck he had borrowed from his brother and headed out. After 20 minutes of dancing around questions from the boy about where they were going, why did they need Uncle Jack's truck? David pulled over to the side of road next to the field of Christmas trees. "What are we doing here?" asked the oldest, Tommy. "Well, I think we need a tree, don't we?" David asked with a big smile on his face. All 3 boys looked out the window at the field of trees and began to cheer. Chad, the youngest, began making chopping motions with his hands. "Can I cut first?" he asked with a huge smile pinned to his face. "Here's the plan." David told his boys, "I was thinking we'd dig up the tree and bring it back home. Then, after Christmas, we can plant it in the backyard. What do you think?" "Mommy always loved Christmas trees," Chad said, still holding the smile on his face. But tears were gathering in his eyes. David could feel the mood in the truck change with Chad's statement. He inadvertently popped the happy ballon. He had to say something to bring joy and happiness back. "Yes," she did. "That is why I thought we could bring one home and keep it all year in the backyard," he said quickly, hoping this would help. Bill, the middle child, broke the silence when he pointed to the largest tree and announced they should bring that one home. The other 2 boys cheered in agreement. "I love your idea." All David could get out before the boys were out of the truck and running across the field towards the large tree. David chuckled to himself and went to the back to pull out the shovels and wheelbarrow, then followed the boys through the field. The boys were basically dancing around the tree they had chosen, even though it was at least 12 feet tall and wider than Uncle Jack's pickup. Boys. Boys. David had to call several times to get their attention. That tree is way too tall to even fit into the truck, let alone in the house. We can just trim some off the bottom to make it fit, Tommy said, looking up and down the tree. Even if we could make it fit, there is no way the 4 of us can carry it to the truck. Buddy, I was thinking of this one. David pointed to the tree he had seen the cardinal in a few months ago. It's kind of small, Chad announced, looking from the large tree to the smaller one his dad was standing next to. Yeah, Dad, Chad is nearly as tall as that one, Tommy added. We can put it on a table in the living room, Dived improvised. Plus, digging this one out is going to hard enough. Tommy shook his head, then clapped his brothers on the shoulders. David geared himself up for a fight with Tommy. Since Kathy's death, Tommy seems to have decided he was suddenly a man and didn't need to be told anything by his father. Come on, guys. Dad's right, that one will be easier to dig up and carry to the truck, Tommy said, shocking his father. The boys and their day spent the next hour digging and pulling on the tree to free it from its grasp on terra firma. Moving to the new tree to and into the truck took an additional 15 minutes. On their way home, they stopped by a gardening center to get new soil and a large yellow planter. Yellow was their mom's favorite color. While shopping, Chad explained to the salesperson the pot was to put their mother in for Christmas, and then put her in the backyard. David had to quickly explain exactly what they were doing. The salesperson smiled and laughed and stated she understood. When they arrived home, David and the boys moved the tree to the edge of the truck edge. They removed burlap they had wrapped around the roots. David instructed them to pull off the earth from the roots before they put it into the new pot. He then went inside to clean up and start making dinner. David had just started browning the meat when Tommy ran inside. Dad, 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 he called, running into the kitchen. David pulled the pan off the burner and looked at his son. Look what we found on the tree. Tommy had 3 small whitish objects in his hand. What are those? David asked, whipping his hand on his shirt, then picking up one of the objects. Looks like a stone, but didn't feel as heavy as it should have. I think they're finger bones, Tommy said, with a serious, straight face. You see, the bigger one goes right here on your fingers. Tommy placed the longer of the bones on his finger between the first and second knuckle. Well, Dr. Leet, you may be right, David said, with a little more concern in his voice than he meant to. How many did you find? Just these 3, Tommy replied. Tommy, we found some more funny stones, screamed Bill from the garage. David grabbed the remaining bones from Tommy's hand and put them on the kitchen counter, then pushed Tommy towards the garage. Once back in the garage, standing at the back of the truck, Chad was holding a hand full of bones that looked just like the ones Tommy had brought him. Okay, boys, David said, looking outside the garage to see if anyone had heard Bill screaming his announcement. Not seeing anyone, he ushered the boys inside. "Let's get washed up for dinner now. But Dad, we're not done yet," Chad mentioned as he pulled another clod of dirt off the root ball. David paused. "It will be easier once the dirt is all dried out." During dinner, David was quiet as the boys chatted endlessly while eating tacos. Halfway through dinner, David excused himself and took his cell phone into the living room. When he came back into the kitchen, he addressed the boys. "Guys?" David started, then took a deep breath before continuing. "Don't be." David's mind went blank. He wasn't sure how to continue. "What the matter, Dad?" Tommy asked through a mouthful of tacos. "No easy way to say this." David bravely started, then immediately faltered, looking in the faces of his sons. "Okay, here it is. The special rocks you found today, cleaning out the roots of the tree. I think they are bones from fingers." Tommy, who had made the discovery, was not surprised. Bill looked at his fingers, as if the bones might be his own. Chad took advantage of everyone else being occupied and grabbed the last taco. 20 minutes later, a police cruiser, followed by an unmarked police car, pulled into the driveway. Over the next hour, the two police officers examined the root ball, while a crime scene detective collected the found bones and searched the roots for more. The detective had taken David into the living room to speak to him. Tommy, Bill, and Chad stood in the driveway and watched the police working. David came out a short time later and, without speaking to the boys, walked over to the neighbor's house and returned with the neighbor, Mrs. Atwell. "Boys, I need to go with the detective, and I'll be back. Until Mrs. Atwell is going to watch over you. I want you on your best behavior until I get back." Bill was the only one who responded. "Okay, you be good too," which brought a smile to David's face. The police finished collecting the bones and searching for the tree ball. They took the 2 shovels used by the family to dig up the tree, and then they left. It was after dark before David returned and collected his children and took them home. Over a pizza dinner, he told them he had taken the detective to the field where they dug up the tree. He explained that they had sort of illegally took the tree, but the detective said not to worry about it, and we could keep the tree. The 2 younger boys cheered. 3 days later, the detective called David back and explained they had found a complete skeleton in the hole they had removed the tree from. A forensic anthropology team responded and determined the body had been buried between 50 and 60 years ago. David expressed his thanks to the detective and said he would think about how to break it to his sons. David heard the detective take a deep breath, then explained he will have to do it sooner than later. While on site, the detectives found 7 more bodies buried under tress in the field. The field used to belong to a notorious mafia associate. The detective believed the bodies in the field were victims of mob hits. The news has already caught wind of the story, so they may be showing up for interview with the man who broke so many open homicide cases. Now it was David's turn to take a deep breath. He thought of Kathy and smiled to himself. She always had a way of making him forget bad things. Dial tone. Dear Jess, Tijuana, Mexico. Pay phone. Outside Mercado El Popo, 1999. Sound of coins clinking, dialing tones. Aló? ¿Quién habla? Myra. ¿Es Leah? Leah. Dios mío. I can't believe it's you. We've been going crazy here. Your mother comes to my house every day asking if I've heard from you. Where are you? Are you okay? I made it to Tijuana. I'm at a payphone near the market. The phone keeps eating my coins, so I don't have much time. You sound different. Your voice. You sound sick. Are you sick? I'm not sick, Myra. Just tired. So tired. Remember how we used to stay up all night studying for Senora Martinez's chemistry exams? This is different. I haven't really slept in days. Days? Leah, you're scaring me. Everything is scary here. Remember how we used to talk about leaving Venezuela? Making plans in your backyard? Drinking your mother's terrible café con leche? Sound of traffic passing, horns honking. Of course I remember. We were going to be roommates in Miami, get jobs at fancy hotels, maybe even meet Ricky Martin. We had everything figured out. We were so naive, Mayre. So stupid. We thought it would be like the movies. Save some money, buy a plane ticket, start a new life. But the visas, they kept rejecting us. And now you're with the coyotes. Leah, everyone here knows someone who didn't make it. Please come home. Home to what? The markets are empty, Mayra. The hospitals have no medicine. Remember when my little brother got dengue last year? Mama had to trade her wedding ring for antibiotics. I can't watch my family live like that anymore. Warning beep from the phone. Hold on. Need to add more coins. Sound of coins dropping. Myra, I have to tell someone. I can't keep carrying this alone. Tell me what? What happened? The group I'm with. There was this girl. My age, maybe younger. From Guatemala. The coyotes, they made her carry drugs. Inside her body. Little packets, like grapes. She cried all night before they made her swallow them. Dios mío, that's not even the worst part. There was this woman with us, from El Salvador, in her 50s with grandchildren in Los Angeles. She showed us their pictures the first night. She couldn't keep up in the desert. Her legs just gave out. Leah, we left her there, Mayra, under a cactus. She begged us not to go. She promised she'd rest just for an hour, then catch up. I told them I would stay with her. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone. but she grabbed my arm, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "No, mi hija, one death is enough." She made me promise to go. She made me do it. Sound of crying, voice breaking. I had to go, Mayra. I had no option. I had no option. I had to run to catch up with the group. I could hear her praying behind me, her voice getting fainter and fainter. We tried crossing that same night, but there was a massive drug bust happening near the crossing point. Cartel activity. Border patrol everywhere. Helicopters with searchlights. The coyotes said it was too hot, too risky. We had to turn back. Now we're stuck here in Tijuana, waiting to try again. And all I can think about is how we left her there, alone, with just those pictures of her grandchildren, sounds of street vendors calling out in Spanish. I can barely carry my own jacket now. It weighs more than all our school books combined. Remember how we used to complain about those heavy books? Bitter laugh. What I wouldn't give to be back in that classroom now. You can come back. Please, it's not too late. It is. There's no going back. The desert, it changes you, changes everything. I see things at night when we're trying to sleep. Shadows moving. Sometimes I think it's the border patrol. Sometimes something worse. The coyotes watch us constantly. One girl tried to run away last week. They caught her. She came back with bruises. She wouldn't explain. Background chatter in Spanish, English, and indigenous languages. Last night, we tried crossing through the river. Everyone said it would be safer than the desert. But there were farmers on the cliffs above the river. Farmers with rifles, Mayra. They didn't shout warnings, didn't tell us to go back. They just started shooting. The water, voice breaking. The water turned red. People were screaming, trying to swim back. But the current was so strong. We had to stay underwater, holding our breath, praying they wouldn't see us. A mother lost grip of her baby's hand. I can still hear her screaming, "Por Dios, Leah." Some people just disappeared under the water, never came back up. The farmers just stood there, watching, like they were hunting animals, not watching people die. Human beings, parents, children, dreams. Warning beep from the phone. I keep thinking about what Papa used to say before he died, about America being the land of opportunity. But he never knew about this part. The nightmare you have to survive to reach those opportunities. If they catch me, I've heard stories about the detention centers, but I can't go back, Mayra. There's nothing left in Venezuela. There's your family. There's me. We love you. Love doesn't fill empty stomachs. Can't buy medicine. Can't build a future. The inflation. It's worse now than when I left. My mother's entire month's salary can barely buy a week's groceries. I have to make it, Mayra. I have to. Sound of more coins being inserted. You know what I think about most? Those stupid telenovelas we used to watch after school. Remember how we'd laugh at how dramatic they were? Now I understand. Real life, real desperation. It's more dramatic than any telenovela. Leah, please. You're trembling. I can hear it in your voice. I am. I'm scared all the time. But I'm also angry. Angry that this is what it takes. That we have to risk our lives just for a chance at a decent life. That farmers with rifles get to decide who lives and who dies. Distant police sirens. The coyotes are signaling. We're moving again tonight. Mayra, if something happens to me. No, don't you dare say goodbye. Listen to me. If something happens, tell my mother I understand now. Why she cried when she found out I was leaving. Tell her I'm sorry for the pain I'm causing her, but not for trying. Tell her what she always told us. La esperanza es lo último que se pierde. Hope is the last thing we lose. Leah, please, and Mayra, that night before I left, when we stayed up planning our future, those dreams we shared, keep them. Maybe not Miami, maybe not the fancy hotel jobs, but something better than this. Promise me you'll keep hoping. I promise. But you have to promise to stay alive. I'll try. I have to go. They're waiting. Don't forget me, okay? Never. Leah, wait. Te quiero, Mayre. Maybe next time. Maybe I'll call you from the other side. Sound of coins running out, followed by the click of the phone being hung up. Then a dial tone. Before the last light fades, the sky hung heavy with smoke. The distant cries of the oppressed swallowed by the towering buildings of a city once free. A mother and daughter weaved through the shadows, their breath shallow, their hands concealed beneath tattered gloves. Veil gripped Iris's tiny hand as they maneuvered through the ruins of their former home. Each step, a calculated whisper in the night. The Iron Thorns brand was the mark of submission or death, and they would take neither. The air carried the scent of decay, a putrid reminder of the regime's cruelty. People slithered through the alleyways, gaunt faces avoiding eye contact, knowing that even a glance could spell their doom. The regime's soldiers patrolled the streets like reapers clad in black, their glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness, hunting those who dared remain unmarked. The execution of Vale's husband, Iris's father, still burned in their minds. The smell of charred flesh haunted their nostrils. The crackling flames, the mocking laughter of the soldiers, the silence of the crowd. It all replayed in their nightmares. They had to keep moving, had to survive, had to evade the fate that had claimed him. Tonight was another night of scavenging. A half-crumbled restaurant stood at the corner of a ruined boulevard, its once vibrant walls now covered in soot and graffiti. Vale pulled Iris inside, keeping close to the walls. The scent of rotting food and stale air filled their lungs. The mother worked quickly, rifling through drawers, picking out anything edible, while Iris stood guard near the entrance. A sound. Boots against concrete. Vale stiffened, signaling for Iris to stay silent. Soldiers, their red eyes glowed from the entrance as they fanned into the restaurant, their movements calculated, methodical. They began inspecting hands, searching for those unmarked by the iron thorn. Vale pulled Iris back, creeping toward a darkened hallway. A misplaced step, a brush against cold metal fork clattered to the floor. The sharp clang cut through the silence like a gunshot. Heads turned, red eyes locked onto them. Vale wasted no time. She yanked Iris's wrist and ran, her heart hammering in her chest. They pushed through a door, locking it behind them. A window, their only escape. Go! Vale hoisted Iris up as the door behind them rattled. The girl scrambled through, dropping onto the cold alley below. The door splintered. Vol lunged through, just as the soldiers burst inside. Shouts erupted, radio static crackling to life. Lights flickered on across the street as people stirred. Gunfire roared. A searing pain tore through Vale's leg as she shoved the door of a rundown building open. She collapsed onto the floor, biting back a scream. Blood pooled beneath her as she dragged herself into the shadows, Iris clutching her arm, tears welling in her terrified eyes. Vale took her daughter's face in her hands. Listen to me. You have to hide. No, Mom. Please, Iris. Vale's voice cracked. Stay hidden, no matter what happens. With trembling hands, she guided Iris into a closet, barely illuminated by the moonlight streaming through a broken window. Iris clamped her hands over her mouth to stifle her sobs. The boots arrived. Heavy, unyielding. A soldier stepped into the room, scanning the darkness. Vale lay in wait. When the first soldier stepped through, she struck, sending him to the ground. But there were more. Too many. A rifle butt slammed into her face, and she tasted blood. Her vision blurred. The room spun. More boots. More fists. She barely registered her own teeth, breaking as she hit the ground. Through swollen eyes, Vale turned ever so slightly toward the closet, toward Iris. A soldier noticed. He stepped toward the door. The closet burst open. Iris flew forward, her father's pocket knife in her tiny hand. She plunged it into the soldier's thigh. A scream. A gunshot missed its target as the soldier reeled back. But then a massive hand swung, sending Iris crashing into the wall. "No! No!" Vale's voice was hoarse, raw with anguish. She tried to crawl forward to Iris, but a boot slammed down on her spine, pressing her into the filth-ridden floor. A soldier began inspecting their hands for the mark of the iron thorn. But there was no mark. A soldier crouched beside her, those glowing red eyes consuming her vision. "We have plans for you." Darkness swallowed her whole. Days passed in black silence, interrupted only by the sound of rats skittering across damp stone. The air was thick with rot. Vale and Iris were dragged from their cell, their chains clinking, their bodies weak. The execution grounds reeked of gasoline and old death. The earth beneath them was blackened, littered with ash. The crowd gathered, silent, afraid. Vale pulled Iris close, pressing a kiss on her forehead. "I love you, Iris. I love you too, Mom." Tears streaked down their faces, their fingers entwined. The soldiers poured gasoline over them, the cold liquid seeping into their clothes, filling their nostrils with its acrid scent. The crowd watched in silence, some with vacant stares, others with barely concealed horror. One soldier stepped forward, a Molotov in hand, his voice a cruel mockery. "I love you too." Laughter erupted behind him. The glass shattered. Chaos exploded. Flames roared. But not from the Molotov. It came from the sky, from behind the buildings. Rebels. Gunfire cracked through the air. The soldiers scattered, scrambling to defend against an unseen enemy. The crowd erupted, some running, some standing frozen in place. Vale, weak, but driven by desperation, tore at the chains. A stray bullet shattered the lock. She ripped her bindings free, grabbed Iris, and ran. Through the chaos, they stumbled into an alley, their lungs burning, their limbs barely obeying their commands. The city screamed behind them, but for now, they were free. Vale collapsed against a wall, cradling Iris against her chest, her fingers running through the girl's tangled hair. The child trembled, clutching her mother's torn cloak. "We're okay," Vale whispered, her voice cracked and fragile. "We're okay." Iris buried her face into her mother's shoulder, sobs racking her tiny frame. "I thought we were going to die." Vale held her tighter, pressing a kiss against her head, rocking her gently. "Not today, my love. Not today." The night still loomed. The regime still reigned. But for this fleeting moment, they had each other. And that was enough. In the alley, you never know when or exactly where I, the destroyer, will strike. I respect no one, people, animals, houses, or possessions. Hear me roar as I approach. Dark clouds and sky announce my coming, Witness my violence. Trees fall, glass shatters, puny man-made cars flip over, roofs are ripped off, light poles are bent. There is no stopping me. A storm is coming, Mitzi. I can feel it in my old bones, Gladys Moore said to her cat that morning. Better turn on the news to see if the weather people know anything. Gladys had lived in Grand Island, Nebraska all her life. No stranger to storms, she knew what to do and had ridden out several during her lifetime with only major yard cleanup. She wasn't that worried. She had a cellar, but she hadn't met an F5 yet. Mitzi vigorously licked her ears. Inside the canal, pressure was building. Far away in the distance, her sensitive hearing picked up a rumble of thunder. She raced around the kitchen, her fur standing on end and her tail puffed out. If her person knew what was good for her, she would slide underneath the bed soon. Well, that is, if she would fit. Rusty Booman heard the news. Same county, same general vicinity. A twister is headed our way. Rusty yelled at his brother, Charlie. Clothes and shoes were jammed on. A camera was slung around Rusty's neck. The back screen door slammed. Charlie gunned the Chevy farm truck as dust and gravel flew up behind them on the road. Rusty switched the radio on and listened to the newscaster. "Turn toward Alda," he said to Charlie. Just then, his phone began flashing. "This is the emergency warning system. Prepare for tornado near Alda and Grand Island." Charlie peered up through the truck window at the sky, where greenish-gray clouds amassed. A stiff wind whistled through gaps in the insulation around the truck's doors. Suddenly, the gale held its breath. The eerie silence momentarily chilled the simmering excitement of the young men. Charlie pulled to the road's shoulder. "This is it, Russ. Get the camera ready. Our names will be all over TV when we get a close-up picture of the funnel coming down. They will say something like, 'Young storm chasers capture tornado touchdown,' and we'll be famous." They jumped out of the truck, and Rusty adjusted his camera's f-stops. Later, what was actually said was, "Young storm chasers killed near Alda." Their pickup truck lay in the ditch next to the road. Who knows what happened to the camera and the pictures? They were never found. "Foolish young men," says the destroyer. "But there is no law that says that people can't be idiots. They got a warning. Even looking at the signs in the sky should have told them I was imminent. No remorse on my part." As soon as Gladys saw the darkening expanse above her house, she put on her sturdy shoes and hung a whistle on a chain around her neck. She called her neighbor, Torrance Fielding. "You headed for shelter?" she asked. "Need anything?" "Yep, going down to keep the spiders in the basement company. Got everything I need. You?" "I'm fine. Just got to sit it out." Her tornado safety list was checked. Food, warm clothing and blankets, a flashlight, first aid kit, her meds, and water. She put Mitzi in her carrier with a soft cloth on the bottom. After several trips downstairs with supplies and her beloved cat, she closed the basement door behind her. A transistor radio would give her news. She put on her bicycle helmet, lest something hit her in the head, well away from the small windows. Gladys planted herself in a chair with Mitzi on her lap. Mitzi hated being confined and restless. She squirmed and meowed. Outside, the wind rose and shrieked and howled like a possessed animal while they waited and waited. Fear shivered down Gladys's spine. Then a silent lull, somehow more frightening, like the storm was gathering strength for its next onslaught. The house began to shake. Hail rattled down outside like bullets. She covered her head and Mitzi with a blanket. Slam, bang. They could hear wood splintering, objects falling and crashing to the floor above them. Paint cans plunged from the basement shelves, and some ruptured, spattering the cement with color. A suffocating pressure bore down on Gladys's chest. Rising dust made her cough. Her heart pounded, and her breath came in gasps. Panicked, she yanked the covering off herself. Bright flashes of light could be seen through the shattered window panes as the tornado passed over them. Debris from outside whooshed in through the broken windows. Mitzi attempted to claw her way out of her prison, but Gladys held her fast. Had hours passed? Again, an ominous hush after the storm had passed over them. But Gladys sat still for minutes, squeezing the carrier against her shaking body. Mitzi let loose a yowl. "We're safe, sweetie." "We made it." Slowly, Gladys stood. Her shoes crunched over broken glass, blown clear across the floor. Avoiding the paint puddles, she grasped the handrail with one hand and climbed the stairs to the door leading back into her house. It would not open. She jiggled the handle. Nothing. She set Mitzi down on the stairs and pushed her weight against it. Wouldn't budge. No way could she crawl out those dinky basement windows. Anyway, she'd be cut to pieces. Wasn't there a hammer down here somewhere? Yep, it had fallen from its perch on the pegboard. My strength isn't what it used to be. These doors were made solid. Not such a great thing right now. She kept hammering without much result. Sweat rolled down her face. She should be glad she'd survived. But now being trapped was scary too. Mitzi wasn't helping. Her plaintive cries grated in Gladys's ears and made her more on edge. She set her weapon down and rubbed her forehead. To her surprise, her fingers came away bloody. When had she got injured? Now it hurt. But when she looked down, her eyes rested on her whistle. She blew with all her might while Mitzi flattened her ears. Hours later, when Torrance was able to exit his own house, which had been flattened by the big oak in his yard, he hurried to Gladys and heard her now faint whistle. He shook his head in wonder. One wall with a door stood. Otherwise, her house was a pile of rubble. "I hear you, Gladys," he shouted. "I'm going to get you out." The destroyer laughed as he barreled down the countryside, wreaking devastation as he went. Even the people like Gladys, who planned ahead, aren't completely safe from me. I demolished her house. She's homeless now. But like others, she might rebuild. Spawned by a thunderstorm, I'll gather strength again soon and plunder this same area. Crazy people. There's a reason why they call it Tornado Alley, the portrait of silence. Clara was 35 when she inherited the crumbling countryside estate of Château des Ombres, a legacy from a great aunt she barely remembered. The news arrived like an omen, slicing through the fog of her post-heartbreak haze, offering an escape from the echoes of a life she no longer wished to inhabit. The estate was a relic of another time, its walls cloaked in dust and draped with faded, peeling wallpapers. But amid the fading grandeur, one thing stood out. A painting in the dining room, unnervingly lifelike, depicting a woman in 17th century attire. A woman who looked eerily like Clara herself, dark eyes, too knowing. A face both foreign and familiar. She reached out without thinking, tracing her fingers over the delicate oil strokes. A chill seeped into her skin. She had never been the type to have doppelgangers or be mistaken for someone else. Yet, as she stared at the unsettling realism of the portrait, she wondered, was her face simply ordinary or disturbingly unique? At first, she dismissed the unease. She attributed the odd sensations, the dizziness, the light-headed drift she felt in the dining room, to exhaustion or stress. The house was ancient, creaking with history, and her rational mind clung to explanations. But as weeks passed, the feeling intensified. The air in that room thickened. Her unease grew stronger every time she walked by the portrait. The painting seemed to shift when she wasn't looking. A flicker in the eyes, a whisper of movement in the curls of painted hair. And at night, as she started hearing murmurs in the darkness, indecipherable and persistent, she began to fear that she was truly losing her mind. She sought answers, but the staff who had served her great-aunt Serafina knew little. The painting had always been there, an intrinsic part of the house. Frustrated, Clara turned to Serafina's belongings, rummaging through drawers and cupboards until she found an old, leather-bound notebook buried in a wooden chest. She flipped through brittle pages filled with lists and recipes until a single entry stopped her cold. She waits in the canvas. She watches. That night, a storm raged. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled through the halls. Sleep was impossible. The words from Serafina's notebook burned behind her eyes. Before she knew it, she was standing before the painting. Breathless, pulse hammering, she reached out, fingers trembling, and scratched at the surface. The paint peeled away in thin layers, revealing another portrait beneath. The same elaborate clothing, the same pose, but the face was different. A stranger's. She could swear the figure in the painting smiled. Briefly, impossibly. The grin was too wide, stretching just beyond the limits of the face. Too sudden, as if it had flickered into existence rather than emerged naturally. A grotesque mimicry of human expression. She blinked rapidly, her breath catching, as though clearing her vision might erase the horror. When she looked again, the smile was gone. A wave of nausea hit her. Staggering back, she felt a weakness grip her limbs. Panic drove her to action. At dawn, she reached out to an art historian she found online. Dr. Theodore Valls arrived at Chateau des Ombres 2 days later. He was a man of careful precision, his salt and pepper hair constantly pushed back, as if keeping stray thoughts in place. His initial response to her frantic message had been one of polite disinterest, until he saw the attached image. He recognized the woman at once. Isabella de Loria. By morning, he was at Chateau des Ombres, his presence sharp against the house's faded grandeur. "This is Alessandro di Rossi's work," he murmured, eyes narrowing in fascination. "An original. But this isn't possible." "What isn't possible?" Clara's voice was taut. He turned to her with a tense expression. Isabella was the only daughter of a powerful aristocratic family from southern Europe. She was painted by nearly all the great artists of her time. She was around 14 when she first posed for a portrait and vanished at age 22. No one knows exactly what happened to her, though there are many tales. But here, he continued, she looks older, much older. Clara led him to the torn fragments of the topmost layer, revealing the face that had been painted over. She looked a lot like me, she whispered, he words feeling absurd even as she begged them. Her voice wavered, caught between disbelief and a creeping certainty she wished she could ignore. Dr. Valls exhaled sharply. The painting was altered, but why? And by whom? As they dug into history, the truth unfurled like a nightmare. The tale of Isabella's disappearance had long been attributed to a commoner's obsession. A man who had watched her from the shadows, consumed by an infatuation that festered into madness. When she refused his advances, he took her. She was hidden away, tortured, broken. Then she vanished. Her body was never found, Dr. Valse said. running a hand through his hair. But if this painting was done later, if Didi Rossi painted her again, aged, changed, then... He hesitated. Then he must have known what became of her. Clara finished. Days of relentless research followed. They sifted through forgotten archives, scoured letters written in fading ink, and pieced together fragments of records long buried in the estate's library. Dr. Valtz reached out to colleagues, historians, and experts in restoration. It was in an obscure 17th century art treatise that they found mention of a certain Dai Rossi portrait. One never exhibited. One whispered about in hushed tones, rumored to hold something more than just pigment and canvas. There was never a commoner lurking in the shadows. The story had been a fabrication, a convenient myth. In truth, Dai Rossi had never been commissioned to paint Isabella. He had offered his services for free, captivated by the chance to immortalize such a remarkable face. An unusual gesture for an artist of his stature. His fascination began as artistic admiration, but soon it twisted into something else. He became obsessed, haunted by her beauty, unable to capture it to his satisfaction. When Isabella sat for him, the proximity consumed him. He had to be near her. He had to possess her. She was never seen again. Several years later, Isabella succumbed to the horrors she endured in De Rossi's grip. Unable to let her go, he took her blood and mixed it with his red paint, binding her essence to the canvas. He had painted her into permanence, attempting to capture what was left of her before it faded completely. The painting had fed on those who gazed too long, who felt its pull. A cycle of replacement, over and over. Clara felt the truth settle deep in her bones. Dr. Valls turned to her, something dark flickering in his gaze. We must destroy it. They worked beneath the shroud of midnight, the flickering firelight casting restless shadows against the walls. The painting resisted, its surface trembling, as if something within fought desperately to hold on. Flames licked at the edges, hesitating, as if repelled. Then, with a sudden burst, the fire consumed the canvas, curling the centuries-old paint into ash. A wave of energy rippled through the room, dense, suffocating. And then, a scream, high, raw, inhuman, tore through the air, reverberating through the walls before fading into an eerie silence. Silence, a faint shimmer lingered in the air, barely perceptible, as if resisting the finality of destruction. For a fleeting moment, Clara thought she saw the embers pulse. Not with fire, but with something else she couldn't explain. The house exhaled. The weight pressing against Clara's chest lifted. When the last ember died, only ash remained. Kat, Leah, and Dave arrived early at Chateau des Ombres. barely containing their excitement at finally purchasing their dream home. By the time the real estate agent arrived and began unlocking the heavy front doors, they had already taken in the surrounding land, giddy with possibility. They had heard about the disappearance of the previous owner, a woman named Clara. The house had been unoccupied since. Eagerly, they explored the dim hallways, the grand staircase, the candlelit chandeliers. Then, in the dining room, they stopped. There, above the fireplace, hung an old portrait. A woman in 17th century attire, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her eyes were dark and deep, her expression impossibly lifelike. Leah frowned, tilting her head. Something about the portrait unsettled her. Not fear, but familiarity, a strange tug in her gut, a whisper of recognition just beyond reach. That's strange. She looks a bit like... She stopped, heart hammering. How exquisite. The woman in the painting did look a lot like Leah, they both agreed, and for the briefest moment, she swore she saw the lips part, forming a sudden, unnatural smile. Behind them, the door clicked shut. A day to remember. Francina Tutiliogi sat up in bed, holding on to dear life the photo of the man who melted her heart, Troy Edwards. It was the night before the big day, the biggest day in her life, where she was going to walk down that aisle and say, "I do," officially becoming Mrs. Troy Edwards. It was the moment her family had been awaiting, including all her cousins, distant and close, from all over the town. As she glanced at the photo of the striking young man, his golden hair that was slicked back, and ocean blue eyes that possessed serenity in them, with whom she'd spend the rest of her life, she sighed dreamily as she began to reminisce about the first time they laid eyes on each other. 1 year ago, during the summer, Troy was a student at the University of Cambridge studying English when he was offered a study abroad program that gave him the opportunity to travel to Italy. The summer program lasted for 7 weeks, and it was during one of those 7 weeks when he made a chance encounter with Francina. She was making her way back home from grocery shopping, and he was trying to find the best restaurant in town. She bumped into him, both hands carrying bags filled with vegetables and other ingredients for dinner, with a carrot falling to the ground. He picked it up for her, and when she looked up, she was enthralled by what she saw. With a sheepish grin, he spoke to her in flawless Italian, asking her for directions to the nearest restaurant for dinner. She laughed, replying to him in Italian that she could speak English as well, and she invited him to dine with her and her family so that he was not alone. Leave it to Francina to show generosity to a complete stranger, especially to an Englishman as good-looking as Troy was, with his sexy accent. She liked that he made an effort to communicate with her in Italian, Not many foreigners, yet alone Americans, would have gone out of their way to do that. Troy followed Francina to her home, where she introduced him to her family. He shook hands with Francina's father, Marco, and her mother, Martina. He also got to know her cousins, Elisa, Paolo, and Natalia, as well as her maternal grandparents, Rosa Maria and Giuseppe. Francina did not have any siblings, so her cousins were like the siblings she'd never had. Troy was an only child as well, so this was the first thing that bonded them as something they had in common. Despite Marco's protectiveness of his only daughter interacting with a man who was not Italian, he still got along with Troy, as did the rest of the family. Troy was a pleasant guest, and he was able to tell the family about who he was. They were impressed by his academic background and his flawless Italian, which eased the initial tensions between them when they encouraged him to speak English to them. Francina was impressed by Troy's ability to charm her family, and for the first time in her life, she fell in love without even realizing it. He charmed his way into her heart, and she wanted to make sure he never forgot. So, when dinner was over and he was getting ready to leave, Francina walked Troy out and thanked him for his company. "I hope to see you again sometime soon," she said. "I'll see what I can do." He gave her that unforgettable smile before he left, and Francina sighed as she thought about the handsome man who came into her home that night and stole her heart away. As a 17-year-old girl, she'd never felt this way about anyone until she laid eyes on Troy. Now, it's been a whole year since that memorable night when she met him, and Francina was eager to marry Troy. She was 18, and he was 23, so she was not too young to get married. This was a time when it was the norm for women to wed at a young age, and Francina's family strongly believed that she was old enough to fall in love and marry. In their eyes, she was no longer a little girl. Marco realized this when Troy came over last week and asked for his permission to marry his beautiful, precious daughter. He trusted and loved Troy enough to consider him to be the son that he'd never had, and he eventually offered the young man his blessing to wed Francina. The next day, Martina and Rosa Maria accompanied Troy to the jewelry store to find the most beautiful ring for Francina, which took them an hour until he found the perfect one. When Troy realized how expensive it cost, he was unsure if it was worth it to spend abundant pocket money on a ring that Francina might not appreciate later in life. He was not employed at the moment, so this would pose a potential financial threat. Rosa Maria, giving him a sympathetic smile, suggested, "I suppose it would be better if you could just give her mine instead." She took off her ring and gave it to him. "Her grandfather gave this to me," which I also gave to her mother here. And now I'm giving it to you to give to her. This ring is a symbol of love in our family, and I have no doubt that you'll make her happy." Troy examined the ring before he could accept it. "Are you sure, Signora?" he asked. Rosa Maria nodded in response as a tear fell down her eye. Martina held her mother's hand. She could tell this was an emotional decision for her mother to make, for the sake of her lovely daughter. Martina said, "Real love does not cost anything. The gift you give must come straight from the heart. Francina shall treasure this all the days of her life. This we are certain of." Rosa Maria had brought her ring's jewelry box with her to secure the ring for the time being. The three of them thanked the store owner for her time before they departed, and Troy's decision was set. He was going to propose to Francina that evening during dinner. That evening, Francina was wearing a lovely aqua blue dress, looking as stunning as ever. She was elated to see Troy join her for dinner, for two at her house. And here he was, dressed in a suit and tie. She didn't know it, but he had the ring in his pocket for safekeeping. He would take it out during dessert time, but for now, it was time to enjoy the main course, while a musician that her mother hired played gentle, romantic music on the piano. When it was time for dessert, the maid came to collect their dinner plates so that the cook could serve the tiramisu and panna cotta. Francina's favorite dessert since childhood was panna cotta, so it was a miracle that the cook could read her mind by providing her favorite dessert. The main course wasn't all that bad either, but the dessert was the best part. Troy held Francina's hand and gazed lovingly into her chocolate-brown eyes. "Have I ever told you how beautiful you looked tonight?" he asked in a smooth voice that caused her heart to beat. "You tell me that all the time," she replied with a giggle. "Well, that is the truth, and I'll never let you forget it. I love you, Francina. I can't explain it, but you mean the world to me. I've never met a woman as beautiful as you. I never felt this way about anyone else before, if you can believe it." Francina smiled. She believed it. He was her first and only. "I love you too, Troy. I love to spend time with you, and I love how happy you make my family. Their happiness is important to me too. Thank you for opening my eyes and my heart to see what true love is. I do what I do best." He grinned as he made his bold move by getting down on one knee and taking out the ring. "And this is the best thing I'll ever do. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Francina. I know your family must think that you're much too young, but for me this feels right. I don't wish to wait a minute longer. Life is short and precious. Precious, just like you." A tear of joy ran down Francina's face. For a second, she thought she was dreaming, but she was not. This was reality. Troy Edwards was really proposing to her. "Troy," she began. "Shh, don't say anything yet. I love you with all my heart, Francina. Your family has been generous and kind to me, especially your father. He gave me his blessing to ask for your hand in marriage. He loves you and is rather protective of you, which is a great thing, because it means that you come from a loving family who want nothing but the best for you. They can agree that I'm the best for you, right? So, what do you say, Francina Tutiliogi? Will you make me the happiest man in the world and be my wife?" Another tear ran down Francina's face as she glanced down at the ring. She recognized it as her grandmother's ring, and it was a family treasure. Rosa Maria had handed it down to Martina, and Martina decided to give it to Troy to give to Francina. Touched by the beauty of the ring, Francina had no choice but to say yes to forever. "Yes, yes, 1,000,000 times yes," she squealed with joy as he put the ring on her finger. Troy announced. She said yes, everybody. Her family arrived in the kitchen to congratulate the young couple. They had organized this dinner so that Francina and Troy could share a private moment with each other as he proposed to her. She just made him the happiest man alive by saying yes. For the rest of the week, after that memorable evening, Francina and her family began preparing for the wedding. Troy's family and friends flew in from England so that they could be there for him. Now, the two families were eager to celebrate their children's eternal bliss. The night before the big day, Francina sat up in bed as she glanced at Troy's photo on her nightstand, reminiscing about the first time she met him, and her fears were eased. Everything was going to be perfect. She woke up in a blissful mood the next morning. A bright and beautiful Saturday. That morning, her family was cheerful as they worked with the photographers and makeup artists to capture as many photos of the bride-to-be as possible. Marco and Giuseppe decided to head to the church to inform the priest that they were getting Francina ready for the occasion. And they stayed in the church with the priest and incoming guests for the ceremony. The women remained in the house with Francina, along with her cousins, for moral support as she wore her elegant, long-sleeved, V-neck lace gown. It was an original, nothing like what her mother, grandmother, or aunts had worn before. Rosa Maria couldn't contain her emotions as she wept at the sight of her stunning granddaughter. She told Francina, "Sei una sposa bellissima. You make a beautiful bride." Francina, flattered by the compliment, gave her grandmother a hug. "Nonna, non piangere. Se piangi, mi farai piangere anche tu." Grandma, don't cry. If you cry, you'll make me cry too. Rosa Maria told Francina that she'd see her downstairs after her cousin, Elisa, helped her with her necklace. After Rosa Maria left, Elisa went to her room to find a more stylish necklace for Francina. In the moment that her cousin and grandmother left, and Francina was alone in her room, Francina went up to the window to open it so that she could get some fresh air in her room. It was supposed to be a very warm afternoon, but then she felt someone shove her in the back, causing her to stumble backward onto the window, shattering it. And she screamed as she fell many feet from the window to the ground. Elisa returned to her room, dumbstruck when she saw the shattered glass, and peered out at her injured cousin on the ground and cried out in terror. Francina, Rosa Maria, and the others came running to the room. "Cosa è successo?" Rosa Maria asked Elisa, seeking to know what happened. Elisa replied, sobbing, "È Francina, è caduta dalla finestra." It's Francina. She fell out the window. Everyone gasped in shock and horror as they came up to the room, glanced at the remains of the broken glass window on the floor. Martina called 911 to report that her daughter had fallen out of the window. She offered to stay behind with Francina until help arrived, while Rosa Maria and the other women volunteered to go to the church to break the shocking news to Marco, Giuseppe, and even Troy. The wedding would have to be postponed for now. Everything happened within minutes. Paramedics came to transport Francina to the hospital, and the family was left reeling from the shocking news. Even Troy was devastated that such an unfortunate thing could happen to the woman that he loved, who he was supposed to share the rest of his life with. Now it wasn't to be. Instead, she was fighting for her life, not knowing whether she would make it or not. The doctors told the family that Francina had suffered significant head injuries and broken bones, so they were going to perform emergency surgery on her to save her life. In the meantime, investigators were around to examine the fall, to determine how she could have fallen out the window. A week later, Francina was in the process of recovering from the surgery, and her family became devoted to caring for her, including Troy. Although they did not get married as planned, he was still determined to take care of her, as if she was his wife. That's how much he loved her, and how much he was willing to stick by her through the thick and thin, in sickness and in health, for better or worse. The vows he was following before he actually had a chance to say, "I do," to her. A week later, Francina was still in the process of recovery. That night, as she was about to wash her face in the bathroom before heading to bed, she couldn't help but overhear the conversation taking place downstairs in the living room. She heard Elisa sobbing uncontrollably, and the others comforting her. "Va bene, Elisa," Martina reassured her, telling her that everything was going to be okay. "No, non lo è," Elisa replied in between her sobs. "È tutta colpa mia. Ho spinto Francina apposta. Vedi, volevo ferirla, perché sono così gelosa di lei. ottiene sempre tutto ciò che vuole. E ora sta per sposarsi con un uomo che ama. Non è giusto, perché che mi dici di me? Non posso farci niente se provo così tanto risentimento nei suoi confronti. Per l'amor del cielo, ha solo 18 anni. Elisa had just practically confessed to having pushed Francina out of the window deliberately while her cousin was alone in the room. She was supposed to help Francina put on her necklace, but instead, she ended up pushing her out the window instead. She wanted to hurt Francina, having always been jealous of her for whatever reason, believing that Francina always got everything she wanted, especially now that she was bound to marry the man that she loved, Troy Edwards. Elisa said she couldn't help the resentment that she'd apparently always felt toward Francina, and now she's trying to justify it by saying that Francina's the one getting married at only 18. Elisa was 23, the same age as Troy, and she herself was single and unattached. Men tended to gravitate more toward Francina than to her, or at least that's how she felt. That was a criminal confession in a nutshell. Francina wanted to go down and confront Elisa, but her weakened condition made her too tired to engage in any yelling. She'd yell at her tomorrow. Instead, she gave Troy a phone call to explain everything to him, and she asked him to report this to the authorities the next morning, which he agreed to do. This was her plan of revenge against Elisa, turning her in. When Francina woke up the next morning, Martina offered to help her downstairs to the kitchen for a nice breakfast. She asked her daughter, "Come ti senti stamattina?" wanting to know how Francina was feeling. "Sto bene, grazie, mamma," Francina replied, saying that she was feeling fine. Rosa Maria gave Francina her dish of eggs and toast, as well as a cup of orange juice, smiling adoringly at her brave granddaughter, who was handling all this with grace. "Grazie mille, nonna. Di niente, amor mio." Rosa Maria gave her a kiss on the forehead to say, "You're welcome, my love." At that moment, there was a knock on the door, and the officers called out for Elisa. Elisa introduced herself to them as they informed her that she was officially charged with assault toward Francina by shoving her out the window. Elisa sobbed, apologizing profusely to Francina and the others, although there was very little her apologies could do now. With delightful smiles, the whole family watched her being escorted by law enforcement. And for the first time in her life, Francina felt victorious toward her bitter, vengeful cousin, who was now going to face the consequences of her terrible actions. The painted door, for what feels like an eternity. I stare at the bloodied body without being able to move. It's sprawled at my feet, limbs flung wide open, limp, each arm and leg pointing in a different direction on the filthy cobblestone ground of the tiny, walled, dark and abandoned courtyard. Above us, the moonlight and the sparks of stars flicker behind white clouds that slice through a deep blue sky, like ghost ships crossing distant, uncharted seas. The layers of mythical creatures and fearsome leviathans. With my free hand, I grope blindly at my own stomach, applying pressure to the wounds, the deep cuts that tore through flesh and muscles during the fight. Warm, dark blood gushes between my fingers, trickling down my arm, soaking the inner sleeve of my shirt and jacket. A lantern shines through the fogged glass of a third-floor window in the adjacent building. I run and hide, crouching behind a bush. Clenching my teeth, I stifle a groan. "Who's there?" demands the gruff, weathered voice of an old man. Through the tangle of leaves, cloaked in shadows, I watch him. He wears a long, white cotton nightgown and a matching cap. One hand holds the open window, while the other grips the lit lantern. He squints and scans the courtyard, fixing his gaze on the body. Hey, you degenerate drunkard. Go die somewhere else, Satan. Shoo. He yells like this for a minute or two, then grunts, mutters a curse, shuts the window, and disappears along with the light inside the room. I lift my head and look around, peering through one of the gaps in the ancient stone wall into the street. Seeing no one, I seize the opportunity to leave the scene. I rise, pull myself over the wall, and slip into the narrow, winding cobblestone streets. I try to move quickly, but quietly. I fail at both. The wound slows me down, saps my strength, the precision of my movements, and wherever I pass, I catch the attention of horses tied to posts or hitched to carriages, and dogs guarding gardens and courtyards. The former neigh and snort, the latter bark, bare their teeth, and growl behind fences, stone walls, or the iron bars of gates. The streets are deserted, except for the animals, silent save for their sounds, the gusts of wind, the rustling of leaves, the creak of hinges on lonely shop, and tavern signs swaying in the dim light. Of the lanterns hanging from sparsely spaced posts along the paths, only a few remain lit. I regret coming on foot, but at the same time, I know I had no choice. I couldn't risk having the coachman as a witness, and driving my own carriage alone would have raised too many suspicions. A rider draws far more attention than a man on foot. A man can move unnoticed, can hide at the first sign of danger, can leap over walls and slip through courtyards unseen, can climb walls and travel across rooftops. After a while, I stop feeling my legs, stop perceiving their movement. Despite my thick, fine clothes, I feel a terrible cold creeping up my spine, stabbing beneath my ribs, filling my chest and guts with dread. I collapse on my knees beside a wall and sit with my back against it in a dark alley, sheltered by shadows, trash, and foul smells. Just a minute, I think. I only need a minute if I allow myself 1 or 100. I can't say. But I wake startled when the clamor of sirens and bells reaches my ears. I've been discovered. They're after me. I bury the fingers of my free hand in the crevices of the wall, between the stones, and pull myself back onto my feet. I resume dragging myself forward, attempting to run. I stagger in zigzags, stumble and nearly fall, collide with posts, carriages, empty stakes, and walls, yet press on, one street at a time and one turn at a time, choosing the most crooked and darkest paths, cutting through back alleys, narrow lanes, and forgotten open courtyards. The dreadful symphony of the pursuit never seems far, but also doesn't gain on me as much as I fear. It follows me closely, always keeping the same distance, as if it were holding back for now. It is a macabre, inhuman sound, seemingly coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. I am about to turn a corner when I see the light, unlike any other I have ever encountered. It is not yellow or orange like the light of fire or lanterns. It is white, pulsating, alive, like sunlight itself. I stop, leaning against the wall of a building, mesmerized. The light crawls over the cobblestones like a living thing, formless and boundless. As it approaches, the colors of the lanterns, the animals, the stones, the ground, the walls, everything it is about to touch, fade away. It is as if the light is absorbing these colors, transforming objects into pencil sketches on white paper, like the ones I make before transferring my drawings in color to the canvases that I exchange for prestige, privilege, and fortune. Then the light swallows them, sucks up the colorless drafts as well, consumes them as if it were an immense, infinite mouth. The mouth of God, reclaiming into cosmic oblivion the living and the dead of this world. Behind the blinding curtain, the world disappears, ceasing to exist in a way that defies both physics and human intellect. Slowly, the light moves forward, a white void, smooth and shapeless, transforming what once was into nothingness. It is at that moment that the bells and sirens grow louder and closer, unbearably near. I look around and then start running again. I cross the intersection, with the light devouring the finite world to my right, and follow the street perpendicular to its advance. In a desperate attempt to lose my pursuers, I turn corners at random, sometimes left, sometimes right, zigzagging northward. My twists and turns are not always aimless. At times, I am forced to turn here and there, or backtrack when the wall of light appears just a few steps ahead of me, burning my eyes and rushing to envelop me. I shield my face behind my free hand and dive into the first available path to the right or left, or pivot on my heels and retrace my steps to the previous crossroads. Thus, I conquer the paved streets and the dirt roads, crossing the mile-long stretch that separates the town from my private hill and the mansion crowning it. I pass through the garden gates and rush to the front door. The guards and other staff still awake at this hour are startled, surrounding me, offering to help me walk, to carry me to a bed, a chair. They inquire about my injury, whether they should send a rider to fetch the physician from the village. I command them all to step back, to leave me alone, ordering that every door and window be sealed. For a brief moment, I work alongside them in this endeavor, but then I turn and make my way down the corridors to the bedroom. I kneel by the side of the massive canopy bed and touch Maria's warm face as she sleeps in peace and oblivion, undisturbed by the banging of doors, the shouted exchange of orders, or the music threatening to unravel my perfect world, the clamor of that million-strong chorus of sirens and bells. Gently, I wake her and help her to her feet. Quickly, my love, come with me. You must come with me, I whisper urgently, pulling her by the hand. She follows, trembling, crying, asking about all that blood, about the injuries, and the blood, the blood, the blood. So it was all over, then. Had I won? Were we finally free to live our love, no longer bound by escapes, lies, persecutions, or consequences? I pull her by the hand through the corridors to my studio. Along the way, I grab one of the lanterns hanging from rings fixed to the stone walls. I enter, pull her inside, and lock the door behind us. Frantically, I fly from one side of the room to the other, ensuring all other entrances and windows are shut as well. I move unsteadily, stumbling, pushing aside finished paintings, knocking over empty easels, unfinished canvases, and tables cluttered with papers, palettes, jars of paint, and brushes. Once convinced that every possible entry is sealed, I return to Maria, grasping her hand again, and lead her toward one of the walls. I scour the floor for a brush and a jar of paint. When I open the first jar, I find inside a solid, useless, gray lump. I hurry around the room, gathering more jars, only to find them equally futile. I try using the paint from the pallets, attempting to make it at least pliable with saliva. But to no avail, I find myself clutching a dry, useless brush, turning helplessly in place, sobbing, groaning in pain. Then I remember the wound, the blood. I return to the wall, grip trembling, inconsolable and bewildered Maria's hand. Dip the brush into my own wound, pulling it out with bristles drenched in blood, dripping red. Together, we approach the wall, and I begin to work. The bells and sirens grow ever closer, unbearably close, now just outside the corridor, sounding in neighboring rooms. With desperate and vigorous strokes, I paint a door, a doorknob, our only escape route. In my mind, I paint on the other side the perfect world, the perfect life, the happy ending we deserve. I squeeze Maria's hand a little tighter. I let the brush slip from my sticky, blood-soaked fingers, falling with a muffled thud beneath the cacophony of sirens and bells. I close my eyes and take a deep breath. With my free hand, I reach toward the doorknob and grasp. Nothing. No, this can't be. I open my eyes and try again. This time, keeping them wide open. Around us, the bells and sirens engulf the world, drowning out every other sound and voice. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. I look around, over my shoulder. From every corner of the studio, through the cracks in the windows and doors, the white, deadly light, that devouring force, seeps into the room. It stretches through gaps between boards and under the passages, swallowing colors, easels, brushes, canvases, and loose sheets of paper. I turn to Maria for one last embrace, but there is no time to know if the movement is completed or if the light is faster, extinguishing us before our farewell can come to fruition. I wake up with my head pounding, the bells and sirens exploding within my temples, and then the music begins to make sense. It sounds familiar, and I realize it is not composed of actual bells or sirens. Blindly, I stretch my arm to the side, fumbling for my phone on the nightstand, and turn off the alarm. I squint at the blinding white light of the sun streaming through the window of my small room, at the foot of my bed. Instinctively, still shrouded in the fog of dreams, I touch my stomach, searching for wounds, only to find it unscathed. Afterward, I get up, wait for the occupant of room 23 to finish their shower, take mine, get dressed, fill my travel mug with coffee in the kitchen on the ground floor of the pension, and rush to the bus stop a block away. Exactly at 7:45 a.m., I knock on the side door of the cafe where I work, located in the food court on the second floor of the Central Mall. William, the grumpy and bald manager, lets me in with a scowl and a grunt. I promptly put on my apron over my uniform, wear my cap, and take up my position. By 8:00 a.m., we are open and running full steam. At 8:17 a.m., Maria arrives. My sweet, small, slender, blonde, and gentle Maria with blue eyes. It's Thursday, and as usual, she is accompanied by her husband. He looks different in 21st century clothes, free of blood, with both eyes intact and without fatal gashes across his neck. They hold hands as they stand in line. At 8:22 a.m., they are in front of me, smiling and politely placing their order while they speak and smile, and I absent-mindedly jot down their requests. I see through the space between their bodies and heads, across the food court, into the art studio on the other side. At once, even from that distance, my eyes find the painting that captivated me 3 days ago, among the dozens of canvases and easels displayed in the windows. A couple holding hands before a door painted on a wall. The man, clearly a celebrated artist from the 18th or 19th century, still clutching a brush wet with paint. And the door. That door. That door. And that freedom. And that door. And suddenly, they could go anywhere they wanted to, could love each other and be happy wherever they pleased, as much as their hearts desired, in any place they chose, and nothing else could follow them. Not through that door. Nothing beyond them would be able to cross it. Certainly, nothing bad or evil. I finish jotting down their order. We exchange pleasantries, and the couple turns their back on me. Maria turns her back on me, taking a seat at one of the tables with her husband. The two share a brief kiss, a tender smile. Clearing my throat, I call out in a loud and steady voice, "Next!" And the line moves, and life goes on around here. Pebble, rain pattered against glass. Burnt beans overtook the scent of fresh bread. Voices overlapped as stories were shared and gossip was spilled. The game played on the TV. We were winning. The buzz in the air was almost intoxicating. Even the rain couldn't dull it. Gray stared at the brown liquid. Steam rose, collecting into beads of sweat as his face hovered over the cream-colored mug. Blonde curls, curtained, flushed skin, and bleeding lips as his teeth pulled at the delicate skin. He was in his own air. The buzz flowed around him. His ears were stuffed with the nectar of the past. It seeped out, dripped down his arm, burned through his skin, revealing scars that were hidden with years of neglect. Nails cracked as he dug into the wooden table. His mind swirled. The nectar was thick. It was creeping through the crevices of his head, consuming thoughts he pushed down and forcing him to face it. Metal filled his mouth as Gray bit down harder on his lips. Pain filled his face, and the sob got stuck in his throat. Taking a deep breath, he picked up the mug and took a sip of the bitter liquid. It stung at his bruised lips, but the taste was welcome. A deep breath led to a long sigh, releasing tension as he slumped over the table. Pebble? He clenched his eyes closed as his mind flooded. The bricks of the dam slammed and slammed against the limit of his conscience as the memories flooded over him. Gray scrambled across the sticky ground. He gripped at the blood-soaked hoodie, pulling the small body into his arms. His fingers left trails as he rubbed at the bruised skin, hoping his touch would wake him up. Pebble, come on. What he thought was a yell was nothing more than a cracked whisper. Shaking hands gripped at curls that were just like his, just a bit brighter in color. He just kept repeating himself, holding the one good thing in his world, rocking him back and forth like he had to do to help him fall asleep just a couple years ago. A few feet away, smoke rose from the fifth cigarette lit today. It found its home between cracked lips. Lips that never once said anything that portrayed an ounce of care. Those lips belonged to a woman of dirty beauty. Beautiful blonde curls that have been passed along for generations framed a pretty pale face that was stressed by a chosen sickness. She stared at the scene, the bodies that were her offspring, at least by the doctor's words. But just 'cause the doctor said it doesn't mean she cares for it. The law forces her hand, forces her to obey her parental expectations, but it can't make her look at them with anything but an icy indifference. That indifference made her not care when they cried, when they needed to be held, when they needed someone to praise them, when they won, and support them when they fell. That is why, when her youngest was beaten with vase after vase until the glass shards impaled him because he whined too much, she didn't move a muscle. One less expense. Tears were dripping into his coffee, little splatters staining his clenched hands. He took one and bit on it, holding inside his screams as what happened just a few hours ago replayed. Stepping inside the decade-old home, the wood creaking with every step, the excitement he felt with Deku swinging in his pocket, imagining the look on Pebble's face as he held his favorite character in his hands. Then the way his soul dropped into the pit of his stomach. How his vision blurred until the only thing he could see was his little brother laying on the smoke-infested rug, his blood making it an even darker shade of black. The glass fractures, creating a mosaic of different colors that flickered in the light of the dusty swing lamp. Knots formed at the bottom of Gray's stomach. It burned. It hurt. The more he pushed it away, the more it forced itself forward. Their mother sitting there, watching, dusting the ashes off her pants. Their father's snores, traveling from down the hall. He bit into his skin until it split. Luckily, his shirt was black. No one could see the blood that was making it stick to his chest. Just the dirt that's layered on top of it. He couldn't leave his brother laying there. Someone had to bury him. Someone tapped him on the shoulder. Gray turned his head, blood trailing down his chin. "Are you okay, honey?" It was a middle-aged lady. Her hair was thrown into a tight ponytail that made her sharp features pop out even more. He licked his sore lips. Looking down, he had bit into the white meat of his hand. Blood trickled down his skin and dripped onto the table. Puffy eyes, blood-tinted skin and lips, dirt-stained clothes. Gray knew he looked a mess, swallowing his answer. His voice probably wasn't going to work anyway. He grabbed his coffee mug and walked right past her. Curious eyes probed at him as he walked towards the glass doors. Someone behind him was asking him to wait. But he didn't listen, or he couldn't hear. Either way, he walked straight into storm, the rain soaking his body in just a few minutes. Puddles splashed, cars honked, wet grass coated abused shoes. Gray let his feet lead the way. They brought him to the park. It was empty, of course. He climbed onto the playground, crawling his way into the little tunnel, the one place that was still dry. Somehow, he was still holding on to the mug. He took a sip. It tasted like brown water in the tube, surrounded by the rain cascading down. He let himself cascade. Sobs spilled out until his whole body shook. His hands not able to find the right place to stay. He kept trying to stick them in his pockets, but then he remembered Deku wasn't there. It was tight in Pebble's hand. He gripped his hair, his scalp protesting. His mother's nonchalant figure, his father's peaceful rest, Pebble's warm body lying there, still. It lit something in him. Everything he was holding inside, all that he kept hidden, to keep a smile on his little brother's face, all he dealt with to protect him, everything he never gained that he gave. His sobs trailed off into a coughing spill. His mind broke. The pain spilled over, the cuts, the bruises, the memories. The mug cracked in his tightening grip, his shaking hands from the cold, or his anger he didn't know. With a crack, the mug spilled into his lap, and a deafening scream spilled from his lips. The force bruising his already sore throat. It filled the tube. The storm swallowed it, taking his pain into its grasp as his vision blurred with red. Reality checked. Maggie stared out the kitchen window, her brow knitted in quiet contemplation as she waited for her coffee to finish brewing. The sun poured through the window, warm and radiant. Yet something felt off. It had rained throughout the night. She recalled the rhythmic pitter-patter against her bedroom window and the wind wailing through the trees. The forecast had called for more storms well into late afternoon. However, outside, the world looked untouched, as if the night's downpour had never happened. She recalled having drinks with her best friends from college last night at the new upscale lounge downtown. Lori had been eager to check out the exclusive rooftop bar, but the rain had forced them to stay inside. Instead, they gathered in one of the lounge's sleek, dimly lit sections, sipping mojitos and catching up. Lori had always dreamed of becoming a corporate attorney, and after years of relentless studying and grueling internships, she had finally landed a position at one of Pittsburgh's top law firms earlier this year. It was all she had ever wanted, and from the way she spoke about it, the long hours and high stakes didn't faze her in the slightest. Sammy and Chloe also seemed to have settled comfortably into their dream careers. Sammy, with her sharp wit and boundless creativity, was making a name for herself in marketing, crafting campaigns for major brands. Chloe, whom she had known since third grade and always the most compassionate of the group, had pursued a career in healthcare, working as a pediatric nurse, the job she had dreamed of since childhood. As Maggie sat there, she couldn't help but wonder if she was the only one still searching for a sense of purpose, trapped in a routine she couldn't escape. Suddenly, the coffee pot beeped, a sharp, cheerful sound, as if proudly announcing the completion of its task. The abrupt noise jolted Maggie from her thoughts, pulling her away from the window. With a sigh, she grabbed the pot and poured the steaming coffee into her oversized pit mug. She and her friends had bought matching mugs from the university shop, a sentimental keepsake to mark their transition from students to University of Pittsburgh alumni. Back then, they had imagined themselves stepping into bright, promising careers, proudly flaunting their school spirit in their new offices. But as Maggie wrapped her fingers around the familiar ceramic, she couldn't ignore the nagging truth. Her future hadn't turned out the way she once envisioned. Maggie took a sip of her coffee and immediately winced at the bitterness, the sharp taste jolting her from her distracted thoughts. She'd forgotten to add the creamer. Heading toward the refrigerator, a realization settled over her. It was Sunday, grocery day. With a resigned sigh, she set down her mug, shuffled to her bedroom to change, then grabbed her purse and keys and headed out the door. The moment she stepped outside, the air was warm and rich with the scent of sun-soaked earth and blooming wildflowers. No trace of petrichor, no lingering dampness on the pavement. It was as if the storm she so vividly remembered had never happened at all. Maggie swallowed, her throat dry and tight. Something was off. She could feel it in her bones, an uncanny sense that the world had shifted on its axis while she slept. She glanced across the street and noticed her neighbors gathered on their lawns, laughing and chatting as if it were a holiday. Odd, she thought. But what unsettled her most was Mr. Burns. The older man was usually a storm cloud of irritation, no matter the day. He'd spent his life working at the same furniture store his great-great-grandfather had built, forever grumbling about long hours and slow employees. Just yesterday, after another exhausting Saturday shift, his voice had carried across the street, complaining about sluggish junior workers, while his wife, Mrs. Burns, stood by the door, nodding in passive agreement, with an umbrella in hand, as he stomped into the house. But today, he was all smiles, chatting with the Morgans and the Wilsons, laughing as if he didn't have a single care in the world. Just then, Mr. Burns looked over, spotted her, and waved. "Good morning, Maggie." "Good morning, Mr. Burns," Maggie said, her voice tinged with bewilderment. He grinned and called out, "When you get a chance this week, stop by the store. I'll give you a discount on any furniture you want. We just received an investment, and things are really looking up." "Oh, wow, that's wonderful," Maggie replied, trying to mask the confusion on her face. Mr. Burns had never spoken to her before. A grunt or a quick nod was all she ever got. It was always Mrs. Burns who was the social one. Maggie's skin prickled. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end as she climbed into her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Something definitely isn't right, she thought. First, the weather seemed odd, and now her neighbor was acting like an entirely different person. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I didn't sleep well, and the mojitos from last night aren't sitting well with me. But no matter how she tried to rationalize it, every instinct screamed that something was undeniably wrong. The drive to the grocery store was oddly surreal. Streets that normally peppered with Sunday morning traffic were unsettlingly quiet. The few cars she passed moved at an unhurried pace, their drivers smiling and waving as if caught up in some unspoken festivity. Pedestrians strolled along the sidewalks with a light-hearted spring in their step, while dogs pranced happily alongside their humans, tails wagging as if the entire world was enveloped in an unfamiliar sense of joy. As she pulled into the parking lot of Greenfield's Market, her unease deepened. The vast stretch of asphalt, usually packed with cars on a Sunday morning, was nearly empty. Only a handful of vehicles sat scattered across the grocery store lot, gleaming under the strangely intense sunlight like polished gems. She cautiously eased into a parking space near the entrance and cut the engine. For a moment, she just sat there, fingers still resting on the steering wheel as she scanned her surroundings, trying to steady her thoughts. "What is going on?" she whispered to herself. Finally, after calming herself, she grabbed her purse and stepped out of the car. The door closed shut behind her, the sound echoing across the parking lot, unnervingly loud against the surrounding stillness. As she approached the store, the automatic doors slid open with an almost too cheerful whoosh, releasing a wave of cool, conditioned air. The familiar fluorescent glow spilled onto the pavement, blinding her momentarily, forcing her to blink rapidly to adjust her eyes. Her gaze landed on the store employees gathered at the entrance, their faces lit with excitement as they chatted and laughed. They held a large banner that read, "Welcome to Greenfields Market. Happy grand reopening. A new beginning awaits." A grand reopening? This surprised Maggie. She had been at this store just a few days ago, and there had been no sign of renovations, no announcements, no changes, nothing to suggest something like this was happening. She forced a smile at the employees as she walked past, gripping her purse handle tightly. Grabbing a cart, she headed toward the produce section, trying once again to shake off the uneasiness rising in her chest. Maggie quickly grabbed her usual grocery items and a few snacks, hurrying toward the register. Despite the small number of customers, the store hummed with an unusual liveliness. As she made her way through the aisles, everything seemed different. The store fully stocked the shelves with fresh produce, neatly arranged in vibrant displays. Maggie couldn't believe what was happening. This wasn't just a grand reopening. It felt like an entirely new store. Yet everything looked exactly as it always had. As she fumbled with her wallet, she heard someone call her name. "Maggie, so nice to see you today. How are you?" It was Jen from her yoga class. Maggie barely managed a smile as she turned to face her. "I'm good. Just doing a little shopping," she replied, her voice flat with a forced smile. "Oh, I totally get it." Jen chuckled. "I'm getting ready for the week too. Can't wait. You won't believe it, but I got a promotion to regional manager last Thursday. Can you believe it? I'm doing what I always wanted." Maggie froze. "Wait, what? I thought you said you hated your job. You even told me you were looking for something else, even if they offered you a promotion." Jen placed a hand on Maggie's shoulder, her face glowing with excitement. "Not anymore. It's my dream job now, Maggie. Isn't it amazing? It feels like a new beginning." Maggie felt a wave of nausea rise in her stomach. Her head spun, and her heart began to race. This didn't feel right. How could everything change so suddenly? The world felt like it was wrapped in some strange, happy haze. How was everyone so cheerful? They continued sharing a little small talk and hugged goodbye just as the cashier finished ringing up Maggie's items. But Maggie's mind was miles away. As if on autopilot, she barely noticed the total as she grabbed her bags and hurried out. Slipping into her car, she leaned back in the seat, feeling disoriented. What was going on? I need caffeine, she muttered, hoping the words would ground her. She headed to the local cafe, desperate for a mocha to shake the eerie feeling that had taken over her, hoping it would wake her up, both literally and figuratively. As Maggie stepped into the cafe, she was taken aback by the atmosphere. It wasn't the usual hectic, impatient crowd, with long lines and customers in a rush. Instead, the cafe was filled with a relaxed energy. People were chatting casually, laughing, and smiling as they sipped their drinks. Then, out of nowhere, one of her co-workers from the hotel, Tim, walked in. His face lit up with a big grin. Their eyes met, and he waved enthusiastically as he made his way toward her, skillfully weaving through customers who were leaving. "Maggie, how are you?" Tim called out, his voice full of excitement. "I'm hanging in there," Maggie replied, still trying to make sense of the strange energy in the air as he joined the line behind her. Tim worked as a bartender at the hotel and was also an aspiring musician, playing local gigs with his band. "Maggie, you won't believe it." Tim's eyes were sparkling as he leaned in closer. "I just signed a huge deal." "What? No way. Congratulations, Tim," Maggie exclaimed, her surprise matching the excitement in his voice. Tim couldn't contain his joy. "Yeah, my band got signed to a record label yesterday. It's my dream, and it's happening." Maggie shouted along with him, her mind still on guard. As Maggie picked up her mocha and exchanged goodbyes with Tim, she slowly made her way to the cafe door, still trying to process what she'd just heard. She was genuinely happy for him, but it felt like everyone's life was suddenly falling perfectly into place. Everyone except hers. She stepped outside into the warm air, the cafe's artificial ambiance fading behind her. As her foot hit the pavement and the fresh air brushed her face, a shiver ran through her, a silent reminder that something was wrong. The streets remained unnervingly serene. Everywhere she looked, people seemed to be exactly where they were meant to be. As she drove home, the familiar scene mirrored the one she had seen on her way to the store. She passed a man sitting on a bench, sketching in a notebook, his face radiating quiet contentment. A woman jogged by, her expression one of pure determination, as if every step brought her closer to her passion. Even the baristas at the cafe earlier seemed to move in perfect harmony, clearly in their element. It was as if the world had shifted into some perfect version of itself, where everyone had found their calling. Maggie's stomach tightened as she pulled into her driveway, the weight of the day settling in. The laughter, the smiles, the overwhelming sense of satisfaction. It all felt surreal and too perfect. She quickly collected her groceries and rushed into her apartment, her haven from the unsettling aura of perfection that seemed to envelop everyone around her. How could everyone else be so content, so perfectly aligned with their passions, while she felt like she was just existing? The world outside her window seemed too vibrant, too flawless. The more she thought about it, the more it felt like a carefully crafted facade, one that taunted her with its perfection, mocking her unfulfilled aspirations. After putting away the groceries, she glanced out the window and noticed the sky had darkened. Was it that late already? The day had passed in a blur. With a sigh, she turned her attention to getting her uniform ready for work. She mentally ran through her usual Monday routine. Oh, that's right, she reminded herself. I need to meet with Mr. Carrollson about booking the VIP hall for this week's seminar. Since the large banquet hall is undergoing emergency renovations. Are you happy, Maggie? The thought surfaced unexpectedly. Is this really what you want? 2 years from now? 5? 10? The questions lingered, unsettling and impossible to ignore. No, I'm not happy, she whispered at first, then repeated louder. I'm not happy. I'm a 29-year-old front office supervisor, stuck in a monotonous routine, she cried out, her voice breaking as tears spilled down her cheeks. Her voice trembled with frustration as she continued, her emotions pouring out unchecked. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't the life I dreamed of. She dropped to the floor, fists tightly clenched, tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking with every breath. My dreams, my life, everyone around me is thriving, doing what they love, and I'm just stuck. The realization crushed her. The contrast between her stagnant reality and the world's perfect harmony pressing in like an unbearable weight. Seeing her friends last night had left her feeling small, inadequate. They had all progressed into their ideal careers. And when the conversation had focused on her, she attempted to joke and dismiss it with a nonchalant, "Oh, I just changed direction." But the truth was harder to admit, even to herself. Somewhere along the way, ambition had quietly given way to stability. The drive she once had, the fire that pushed her forward, had dimmed, replaced by routine and practicality. And now, as she neared 30, she woke each morning with a dull, persistent ache of regret, haunted by the question, why had I just simply settled for this life? She had long since convinced herself that she was fine, that comfort and security were enough. But were they? Seeing her friends thrive, their eyes alight with passion for the things they loved, had stirred something restless inside her. Do you keep going like this? Waking up every day to the same boring routine, letting time slip through your fingers? Or do you finally take a stand, make a change, and pursue the life and career you truly want? The thought gave her chills. Change was terrifying, but an unfulfilled life was worse. If she didn't decide now, would she still be here years from now, trapped in the same cycle, suffocating under the weight of what-ifs? She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. The choice was hers. And for the first time in a long time, she was ready to take the steps necessary to make the change. Maggie felt the weight of the day finally lift, the uneasiness that had clung to her dissipating. As she climbed into bed, a sense of determination settled over her. She was ready to embrace change, to carve out a future she truly wanted. Soon after she drifted to sleep, a loud, thunderous boom jolted her awake. Her eyes snapped open, blinking rapidly as she tried to gather her bearings. Rain pounded against the window, the storm outside mirroring the confusion swirling inside her. Half asleep, she reached for her phone. The screen lit up. 5:34 a.m. Sunday. Squinting, she frowned. Wait, Sunday? Did I read that right? She gasped, sitting up quickly, her heart racing. That couldn't be right. She had just lived through an entire day. She had gone shopping, talked to Jen, seen Tim, struggled with her emotions. How could it possibly be Sunday morning again? Scrambling for answers, she lunged for the TV remote and turned it on. The menu flashed across the screen. Sunday, 5:35 a.m. Her pulse roared in her ears. Oh, my goodness. Was it all just a dream? She whispered, her mind racing to make sense of it. A breathless, incredulous laugh escaped her. It was all just a dream. A weird, unsettling dream. Yet, as the initial shock settled, another thought took its place. It had felt so real, so vivid, like she had actually lived it. But more than that, it had forced her to confront the very things she had been avoiding. Her doubts, her fears, and her regrets. Seeing her friends had been the catalyst, but the dream had been the wake-up call. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't merely just a dream. Maybe it was a sign to stop waiting for the world to change for her. There's still time to pursue her dreams and embrace new beginnings. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be exciting. So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.